My name is Dr. John Niles. I'm the head coach at Susquehanna University, which is in Selinsgrove, Pennsylvania. Also joining me is our assistant coach, Tony Zitta, who's a Susquehanna grad as well. And so we are located about 2.5 hours west of New York City, 2.5 hours northwest of Philadelphia, in Selinsgrove, Pennsylvania, exactly halfway between Harrisburg and Williamsport. So for reference sake, less than a mile from the Susquehanna River. So Susquehanna is a selective liberal arts college. We're a nationally ranked, top 125 ranked national liberal arts college. And so our focus as an educational institution is on the comprehensive liberal arts and sciences, plus the aspects of being professionally prepared, which are going to give you lifetime professional and personal success. So we're blending the aspects of critical thinking and preparedness in a liberal arts institution with real world experience for our undergraduate students. So we have a pretty innovative central curriculum, which focuses on aspects of skill development. I teach at the university and direct our freshwater research initiative. So I am an employee of the university, first and foremost, and my background, I have a PhD in fisheries ecology. So I'm an educator first and foremost. So I look for students that can succeed in this curriculum. So as a club sport, we want our athletes to be well-focused throughout the rest of their career as they go into the workforce. So we focus a lot on the individual skill development across our curriculum. And so things that look at teamwork and writing and speaking. We also have a cross-cultural component that I'll talk about in a little bit.
And I'm on the same, I'm in the same boat as Doc here, being an educator first and foremost. Before I'm a coach, I'm in the English department, not necessarily something that you might equate with rugby right out the bat. But one thing that's really interesting about the central curriculum and how it was developed was we went to a bunch of employers of our alumni and we said, what are skills that you're looking for in recent graduates? And they didn't say, oh, we want people that know math and we want people that know science and we want people that know this and that and these general ed requirements that you might just tick off. Instead, they said, we want skills, essential skills that they're going to be able to be knowledgeable in and apply into the workforce. Again, talking about that preparedness. They said, we want, as Doc said, oral and written communication, being able to work in a team, being able to adapt to a diverse workplace, things like that. So that's the type of education that you're going to be getting from the central curriculum, as opposed to simply saying, oh, I have to take a math class, or I have to take this class, I have to take that class. There are all of these skills that you're going to be taking out of each class, as opposed to a general ed.
So in that regard, we have a very small student to faculty ratio, so very small classes, around 13-1. The class that I teach currently have 12 students in it. I would say Tony's classes are fairly similar in him teaching first and second year students. So you get very close personal interactions with your professors and the other rest of the students that are in your class. So on day one, I know my students' names that are in my class. And they know mine and a little bit something about me. So it's those close personal connections that are great about a university like Susquehanna. So we have about 2,300 students. They come from around 30 states, including DC, and we have a fairly robust international community with 31 countries. All of our students are undergraduate students. So all of our classes are taught by the professors that teach those classes. So there are no graduate students, there are no teaching assistants. in that regard. So it's personalized one-on-one interaction with your professor. Some of our great outcomes are that one of the big things to key on is that 96% of our alumni are working full-time or working on a higher degree in graduate school within 6 months of graduation. It's a very high employment rate as far as we're concerned. And so that's a great thing that our alumni go on into the workforce for. As I said before, we have a cross-cultural component as part of our experience here at Susquehanna, and 100% of our students study away as part of our Global Opportunities Program. And that's can either be a 2-week trip, 2 to 3 week trip led by a faculty or staff member to a location to experience variety of aspects of cross-cultural immersion, or it can be a semester-long experience at a study away location as well in a foreign country. So a little bit about that. We've actually had several of our rugby players design their own Global Opportunities Go Your Own Way program, in which we had 2 summers ago, we had a large contingent of our players head to Scotland for 3 weeks to work with Sale Sharks in Glasgow. And it was organized through part of Irish Rugby Tours and George Hook and his organization. And so these guys trained with the Sale Sharks, just like some of the professionals do and some of the coaches, and they trained with Glasgow in these immersive experiences. And brought a lot of that knowledge back to our club as well. So this has been a fabulous opportunity for us and for our students to get immersed in rugby in different places. So,
and one of the great things about that aspect of Go is this is something that I've been able to experience when I was a student. This is something that I was able to benefit from. I studied abroad in Barcelona, and while I might not have gone to, say, practice with a team in Barcelona, I was able to look out for what rugby looked like in Barcelona and what Spanish rugby looked like. And a bunch of my friends went to New Zealand and watched rugby in New Zealand and were able to look for rugby in these other places that are generally more focused on rugby. And that cross-cultural immersion, as Doc has said, that type of interaction is where, again, we're going to then hone in on this career preparedness where there are elements related to this requirement that allow you to be prepared for the experience that you might not have ever done before. And then once you come back from that experience, we reflect and say, all right, how do we make sense of what you've just gone through? And in the case of something like this rugby experience, how do we recognize that there's a little bit more here than just you went and played rugby, but you actually interacted and saw how other people went and lived their lives and how different contexts are affecting the way that they live their lives and how that's going to then change your worldview potentially and affect the way that you go out into your future post-graduation. So there's a lot of things that go into play outside of just, oh, I went and I played rugby, but that's obviously a great aspect of this and an opportunity that you might not get to experience anywhere else.
So Susquehanna rugby is a club sport on our campus, like most other programs out there, with a few exceptions. We compete with in National Collegiate Rugby. We compete in the small college division, which was formerly known as NESCRO. As part of that, we have gone to 2 15s national championships, played in the Sweet 16. We've been 3-time MARC champions the last 3 years in a row. That's the Mid-Atlantic Rugby Conference. And we've gone to 7 Sevens national championships to compete for the Sevens national championship as part of the small college division. The player that you see there in the lower picture, that's Raheem Powell, who's a 2019 graduate. And Raheem just signed recently this past winter a developmental contract with the Dallas Jackals of Major League Rugby. And while they're not competing this year, he still will be going down there and working with the Jackals in a couple weeks. We're currently ranked in the top 10 and 15s for NCR when we finished the spring season last year. We have around 45 players on our roster from a myriad of backgrounds. About 25% of those players played some aspect in high school. And so if you've played in high school before, it gives you a little bit leg up in the experience realm for us. But around 75% of our players didn't come to rugby until they were at Susquehanna. We finished last year ranked in the top 5 and 7s for our for NCR for small college as well, and we played at the Sevens National Championship in 2019. You may have seen us there. So while we're a club sport, we get a vast amount of support from our university. We have our own pitch on campus. It is ours and the women's team to share. It is maintained by our facilities management. They put the lines on, they water it, they cut it, they help maintain it. It's ours for our use. During the winter season, we have ability to practice both in our indoor field house and on our field turf that's used by our varsity teams. And so they work hand in hand with us. We're actually a very well-funded club sport on campus with around $40,000 a year in funding from the university. Our administration values rugby and all of the things that we bring to the campus. So while we are a club sport, they look at us like a mini varsity sport in some cases. We have a vast parent, alumni, and friends and family network that supports the university. We had over 175 people purchase tickets to support us at the National Sevens Championship in June of 2019. If you attended that, you might have seen the Orange Brigade in our neon orange t-shirts throughout Talent Energy Park. And as I said, we have great support of our university. In fact, that is our current university president, Dr. Jonathan Green, on the right, who attended the Sevens National Championship with us and got to see us finish 5th in that endeavor. And so his support has been great in his short tenure here at the university. So it's great to have that university support. So we actually, this past fall, we actually were able to practice with certain guidelines as part of some of the things that were happening with COVID. Athletics looked at us just like an athletic sport, like the varsity athletes. And so we were able to do socially distant practice, non-contact practices 3 days a week. And so our skill set focus was on strength and conditioning and decision-making since we weren't allowed to do contact. And we had over 45 players at our practices throughout the fall season. So despite there being a pandemic on, our university actually still allowed us to practice. We obviously didn't have any games at this point, but we are hopeful for this spring as the university is allowing athletic competition to go forward. And we're having conversations with our university administration about us actually playing, because all of our players and all of our campus is being tested twice a week. So we hope that that will allow us to actually play a couple of matches this spring. So real brief, and Tony can answer any more of these questions, but our application requirements, we use the Common App or the Susquehanna Success app. You need an official high school transcript and AC or SAT scores, but we are also test optional. The university likes to see if you are taking the SATs, that your SATs are greater than 1050, and your GPA is greater than 3, because all of our scholarships are merit-based. And so having higher grades or higher SAT scores or ACT scores will help enhance your merit scholarship that you will be awarded. And so if you're interested, you can check out our university webpage and apply. Every time that someone with a rugby background applies, I get an email on Monday of all the new updates. In fact, Tony's wife, Sarah, actually works in admissions as an admissions counselor. So we work hand in hand with the university to fast track any rugby applications. And if there's students that are visiting campus with a rugby background, they reach out to us fairly immediately in advance of their visit so that we can meet with them one-on-one. Tony, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I just want to stress the aspect of the test score optional side of things, especially right now in the midst of the pandemic. You might not even be able to take a certain test that you might want to. And it's important to understand that that's not going to affect you negatively. If you have those test scores and you think that that's going to be a good representation of you and add to your worth, then absolutely include those. But at the same time, if you don't have those scores, don't think that it's going to hurt you. In the review process, it's what's called a holistic review. So if you only think that your GPA and transcript are the best representation of you, then put that forward. Whatever you have that you think is the best representation of you academically, supply that, and that is going to give you the best shot at having the best merit scholarship possible. And I think that's really important to know. I mean, we've also been test score optional for the longest time. We were test score optional when I was a student. We were test score optional before I was a student. When I applied, I didn't submit my test scores, and look at me now. So if that's something you're worried about, definitely don't be. But at the same time, if it's something that you think is going to benefit you, then absolutely add that to your profile and see what that brings forward.
So if you're interested in some more information, you can just go to the General University website on the slide before, www.susquehanna.edu/apply. If you want to reach out directly to me, my email address is there. It's niles@susquehanna.edu. You can also look for us on Instagram. It's SU_men's rugby. And we actually have a recruitment form that's located right in our bio that you can fill out that information directly, and it'll send it directly to us. We are actually in the process of updating with our university, our recruitment form through athletics. And it will also be posted there in the next couple of weeks. So I want to thank you all for joining us, and hope to see some folks on campus soon when we start welcoming visitors back in the next couple of weeks.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys. Any questions from anyone? Just one from me. If you could start out, if you just talk a little bit about what a standard season may look like in terms of practice schedule and game schedule as well, in a non-COVID environment.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start, Doc, and then you can kind of fill in, at least in terms of practices. We practice 5 days a week right after classes end, which is about 4:15, and we don't get started until about 4:30, I would say. And obviously there's this flexibility that as long as you're open with us, we understand that you have other things to do. So if you tell us what your schedule is and we understand where you're going to be on certain days, then we're all on the same page. But 5 days a week, and then games are on Saturdays, which I I know we're kind of in the process, Doc. I don't know if you want to explain this, of kind of changing the way that our season looks. So if you kind of want to explain what that looks
Um,
like and what
yeah,
our
so
goal is.
fall is 15s here.
Spring is
And
sevens then.
spring is sevens, but we've also done, because of the sheer number of size of our program as it's grown, we have kind of a hybrid of both 15s and sevens. So we'll have a subset of sevens only players that may also play occasionally 15s, but the 15s is to, in the spring, is to build for the fall season. And so we've, some cases, we've gone to 3 different places to play on a given Saturday when we've had sevens tournaments or multiple tournaments. We have another coach as well, and so each of us has taken a team to one
I'll
different
go one
location.
place, Doc will go another place, Randy will go another place, and we each kind of have our own section of players where we're all kind of competing for and developing whatever skills that we're seeking to
We
develop.
usually will start several days in advance of other students arriving to campus in the fall, and we typically, last time we played in December of 2019, we actually played December 5th in North Carolina. So, and then we were right back at it January 25th with indoor fieldhouse training when the students returned. So that's what, and we've gone through, May 31st in the past couple of years. So it's summers off and a little bit of break over the winter season. So.
And is that pretty much the same for the women's program as well? Can you talk a little bit about their offerings?
So the women's program, they have one current coach right now. It's not as well developed as ours is. They've struggled the last couple of years, but they've recently become a little bit more successful, a little bit more structured. And so they have some new leadership that's come in. And so we're hoping that helps elevate their game a little bit. There was a period of time in the early 2000s and 2010s and such where they were extremely successful. And then before we arrived on campus, and we were not very successful. So, but we have an active women's team. They have around 25 players at this, and we share field space with them. The last thing to note is that we have no classes between 4:15 and 7 o'clock. So that time is available for everyone to do extracurricular activities. And so that helps get 95% of our players to every single practice, unless they have a meeting with a faculty member or something else that they have going on. So.
Great. And we had one question from the audience. Could you please share a little bit more info about the merit scholarships? How much of tuition, fees, housing would be covered, and what percentage of your student athletes receive merit scholarships? Also, are they multi-year or renewable every year?
So I can kind of cover that, and that was definitely a lot.
I can go back through. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. At least once you apply, you're automatically considered for a merit scholarship. And those awards go up to $38,000 per year. And again, what's considered within that merit scholarship are the GPA, the test scores, et cetera, whatever is going to help define your academic career and merit, basically. And then, I mean, that's once you receive that, that's going to go towards everything, basically. It's going to bring your whole cost down. It's not like towards one sector of costs. So I do not have this information off the top of my head. Doc, maybe like the average cost then, what is that?
So Susquehanna is a selective liberal arts school. So most of like your Northeastern, Mid-Atlantic liberal arts schools are very expensive on sticker price, right? But nobody pays sticker price. So
right, that's definitely the biggest thing to know, is whatever number you see isn't going to be that final number.
I would say on average, most of our players are paying anywhere between $22,000 to $27,000, depending upon the aid package that they get, which includes tuition, room and board, fees, etc., everything, and it's all academic based. And so, in some cases of whether if you're from New Jersey, it might actually be cheaper than being in-state at certain schools in New Jersey. Once you look at it all with the aid package, and cheaper than some Pennsylvania state schools too, once you look at the aid packages that are there too. So it's
Another thing-
affordable once you apply and get your aid. But
Exactly.
a lot of people
Another
might be
thing to
scared.
consider then too is to file for the FAFSA, have that information in front of you, and filing for FAFSA needs to be completed by October 1st when you're considering, and that'll be for need-based financial aid in addition to the merit scholarship that Susquehanna will be offering you, whatever that might end up being.